When should they actually move to something that conservative as
Yeah,
bonds?
so typically kind of like those target date funds we talked about before that have kind of that natural glide path. We see something very similar. So you take my two sons who will be 35 and 33 in April, right? I would expect that they would have 85, 90%, maybe even 100% of their assets in growth or alternative type assets, stocks or alternative type assets. And it's exactly like you said, right? They don't need bonds for income purposes. The only reason they would really need any bonds in their portfolio would be for risk mitigation purposes, right? Because typically, and we saw this last year, you know how I said in 22, the stock market dropped and the bond market dropped at the same time because the Fed was raising interest rates. Well, over the last from September of, I'm going to think through this, from September of 24 through the end of 25, the Fed's cut interest rates six times by 1.75%. So last March, April, when we went through all the trade tariff, dislocation and volatility related to, President Trump coming out with the Liberation Day announcements and so forth, and the stock market dropped 20%. Well, because the Fed had cut interest rates, bonds actually went up in value. So bonds kind of did what they did back in the dot-com 9/11 scenario or 07, 08. So they played a role in mitigating risk, but you only need for if you're a young person like you or my sons or whatever, right? You really only need enough money in bonds to mitigate risk to the point that you stay put, that you don't panic and sell when things are down, right? Because that's the other big problem is, when the stock market dropped 20% last March, April, in early April, people were panicked and sure that this trade war was going to do a number of things, right? It was going to slow the economy. It was going to cause a recession. It was going to cause corporate profits to crater. It was going to cause job loss and so forth. None of which came true, by the way, right? But if people felt enough pain in their portfolio that they panicked and did the wrong thing, they missed this massive rebound that occurred from early April through the end of the year. And so the only reason, going back to your original question, the only real reason to have some bonds in your portfolio would be to mitigate risk enough that you don't panic and do the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Save yourself from yourself panicking.
Yeah, no question. And I mean, Warren Buffett one time said, he said, an investor's chief enemy is likely to be himself, meaning that he's probably going to do the wrong thing at the wrong time sometime just because they panic, right?